We're dealing with a myriad of issues. I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor of down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties, and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
When asked why so many of the hydrants in the Palisades ran out of water, Governor Newsom said the local folks are trying to figure that out. Yeah, you got to do that before the fire.
A pointed critique unfolded on Bill Maher's program, diverging from his typical comedic style. The exchange delivered a methodical, data-driven assessment of California's political landscape. The line of questioning, coming from a long-standing voice within liberalism, suggests emerging tensions. This segment examines the substance of that conversation and its implications for Governor Gavin Newsom, arriving at a politically sensitive moment.
I see today the Trump administration, they talked about the fact that California had a rule that schools cannot be required to notify parents if their kids in school have changed their gender, their pronouns. That's the kind of thing, even though it doesn't affect a lot of people, that makes a lot of people go, well, you know what? That's the party without common sense. Now, if that's your state, how are you?
In a notable departure from comedy, a recent television segment subjected California's political leadership to a stark, data-focused critique. The analysis, delivered on Bill Maher's program, bypassed punchlines for a point-by-point examination of the state's direction. This critical perspective, emerging from within liberal circles, highlights deepening political fissures. The timing of this scrutiny presents a significant challenge for Governor Gavin Newsom, framing California's current condition as a difficult and pressing reality.
And it's my home. And stupid as its origin may be, it's not going anywhere. Axios ran a story on how getting the water out of the hydrants in Pacific Palisades was more complicated than it seems. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's very complicated. That's why I pay 13% of my income in the state every year to people who I assumed were working on things like this.
Anchor lead asterisk. Governor Gavin Newsom's political approach is defined by confidence and polish, a style now facing direct criticism. Body asterisk. Analysts say his tenure has prioritized presentation and image over substantive, measurable results. Critics argue this strategy has shielded the administration from rigorous accountability. The governor's unwavering confidence, they contend, often substitutes for demonstrable progress on key state issues.
But look, I understand this notion that you're from the coast, you don't understand those things. You can't talk the language. You're not able to communicate. You're not able to actually encourage and find that common ground.
It's stuff like there's a new law in this. I think we have way too many regulations and laws, as we've talked about. And this one, I think, says if you're a department store with over 500 employees, you have to have a gender-neutral toy department. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I get it.
So do you think that's silly? Do you think that's a silly thing that we too much government?
The critique of California's trajectory has not manifested as a dramatic collapse, but through a polished political presentation. Observers note the state's challenges have been framed by eloquent rhetoric and highly produced announcements. This approach has led some analysts to characterize the governing style as more focused on delivery than on tangible results for the state's pressing issues.
The law was you would be fired. A teacher would be fired if a teacher did not report or snitch on a kid talking about their gender identity. I just think that was wrong. I think teachers should teach. I don't think they should be required to turn in kids. And by the way,
we're talking about their parents. How can you snitch? The idea of a snitch and a parent to me doesn't compute.
Well, I don't. But what is the job of a teacher? It's to teach. If Johnny's talking about some identity issue or some issue about liking someone of the same sex, is the teacher's job?
F-bomb comment. He's an evil snake motherfucker.
In this context, commentator Bill Maher has assumed a specific role. He is not positioned as an opposition figure, but as a longtime insider who is now raising fundamental questions. Analysts suggest his function is to voice the concerns others may be avoiding, challenging the prevailing narrative while the broader political conversation continues on a different track.
But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive, coming from this state and what he's done in this state, to win in any southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but now this is a progressive African-American owned station, and I'm sure they like you, but he doesn't think you can win. What do you say to that if you could win look at the swing states, there's only 8 of them.
Right. Well, I mean, California is an interesting case study, isn't it? It's the size of 21 state populations combined.
The critique was effective precisely because it was understated. The host presented California's own economic and social statistics, which analysts say speak for themselves. The impact was amplified because the questions came from a commentator who has historically aligned with the state's dominant political ideology. Under Governor Gavin Newsom, California has pursued expansive policies with significant taxpayer investment. Critics point to outcomes including high costs of living, with notably steep housing prices and grocery expenses. The state has also experienced a documented decline in population. The political response has often involved new initiatives and specialized terminology. The television segment challenged the disconnect between these official communications and the economic realities faced by residents and businesses. The commentary suggested that intention does not equate to measurable success.
Trying to get Gavin to run for president for a very long time. And
are you serious? I mean, give me a fucking break. Come on. Really?
again, my thing with Gavin is, first of all, he can win. First of all, I just like him. I think he's really smart. Is he a politician? Yes. That's the hello. Is he slick? Good. I'm fucking glad he's slick. Slick people win elections. Clinton was slick. Obama was pretty slick.
How do you feel about the way he handled
Good.
COVID?
The state was designed to demonstrate how progressive ideals could fuel prosperity. Instead, observers note a growing disconnect between political promises and practical results. Governor Gavin Newsom has consistently framed the state as thriving. This comes despite documented outmigration and a high cost of living. Housing prices have reached record levels. Policy responses have frequently involved new commissions and revised terminology. On public safety, the discussion has often centered on social context, even as security concerns persist. In energy, the state promotes a renewable future while grappling with grid reliability. Tax revenues have increased, yet many public services report strains. The core critique, as highlighted in recent media coverage, is that well-intentioned policies have not always delivered corresponding improvements in daily life for residents.
Well, I got you here because I live here and I'm not going anywhere. So I just want to make this a better state like everybody else.
Amen.
And good job this year making it rain.
You're welcome. That was
Because
my legislative priority.
it was looking bad there for a while, and we still don't have enough water in the Colorado River and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then whenever I read, 80% of the water goes to agriculture. Almonds.
Right.
No one ever asked you about almonds? Oh, I'm going to ask you.
Observers note an irony where public discussions on issues like crime contrast with private security measures. Governor Newsom has become synonymous with this dynamic. Commentary suggests that for some, the situation has moved beyond satire into reality. The state's energy policy promotes a green future while facing immediate reliability concerns. Tax increases have not always correlated with perceived improvements in public services. This has created a scenario where residents report paying more but feeling they receive less. The criticism underscores a perceived disconnect between policy intentions and lived experience for many Californians.
State to reopen.
Not for it.
Shut the
It's-
schools
not,
forever.
not for it.
Mind you, with no mask
I know.
on at the French Laundry after saying
Oh,
you
see,
can't.
again, you are just, I think you've been captured by this.
No, I haven't.
This is
He's a
what-
hypocrite,
this is what-
and that bothers
this-
me. If he was
He
a
went to the
COO,
wrong restaurant. Really?
Bill,
This is it.
he
Like
didn't
again,
follow his own
I
rules.
get-
If you're going to be
I
a
get
leader,
it.
you lead by example. That's a fucking damn.
The administration frequently portrays policy difficulties as necessary steps in a bold agenda. This persistent optimism is now being weighed against specific outcomes. The homelessness crisis presents a stark contrast between the state's vast wealth and a growing humanitarian emergency. For businesses, the regulatory environment is often described as complex and burdensome. This has coincided with companies relocating to states with different tax and regulatory structures. The critique questions the sustainability of funding expansive social programs while economic conditions incentivize some employers to leave. The fundamental argument presented is that intentions must be matched by measurable, positive results for residents.
Do you like Newsom? How do you feel about Newsom?
had him on my show Friday.
I saw that.
And I first of all, I love him. You just like a guy or you don't. I've known him for a long time. He's done my show for a long time. Do I love everything he does as the governor of California? No, I don't. I wouldn't say I'm undertaxed. Yeah, I have issues with this state. He's One reason I want him to run for president, well, is because he's obviously a winner.
The state's cultural posture is now often characterized as didactic. Governor Newsom is frequently associated with this style, delivering speeches critics describe as overly polished. This approach has drawn rebuke from commentators who argue that questioning outcomes should not imply a moral failing. In public education, significant investment has not consistently yielded improved results. Major transportation projects, involving substantial spending and lengthy timelines, have frequently fallen short of public expectations. Commuters face persistent congestion, creating a disconnect between promised progress and daily reality. The overarching critique is that grand visions are not being fully realized in practical, measurable terms for residents.
You've opened an interesting can of worms, Mr. Gaffigan. So, first of all, you think Gavin Newsom is running for president?
I think he's the likely alternative.
That's interesting because I like Gavin a lot. Now, I hope he runs for president because I think getting to the national stage would help with the one thing I have trouble with him about, which is sometimes he's way too cuckoo.
The commentary's power derives from highlighting this persistent divide. It notes that California's renowned reputation for opportunity is perceived to be fading, replaced by a high-cost environment. The critique suggests the state functions best for those who can financially navigate its complexities. The political defense of Governor Newsom has historically framed criticism as partisan. State media has often focused on symbolic leadership. The critique bypasses this by concentrating on concrete results, using satire to question whether grand visions are being realized. The underlying argument is that confidence in governance must be validated by measurable progress in residents' daily lives.
About the Democrats winning elections.
Yes.
Could they get a Frank Luntz? Could they get somebody who would teach them to name things better? Sanctuary cities.
Yeah, it's not
a great single payer.
Yeah, confusing.
Not helpful. Make people think, oh, that's going to be me. Yeah. Global warming sounds nice.
Actually,
Jesus Christ, can we just name things better? Can we start with that?
This focus on virtue signaling, critics argue, often substitutes for substantive progress. Governor Newsom is seen as a central figure in this dynamic, delivering assured performances. The treatment of political dissent is sometimes perceived as dismissive, framing disagreement as a deficiency. The cumulative effect of these trends is a growing perception of the state as a warning rather than a model. The governor continues to project certainty. However, commentators note that unwavering confidence absent concrete accountability risks appearing disconnected. The ultimate critique is that governance requires deliverables, not just declarations, to maintain public trust.
Well, he was the mayor of San Francisco, right?
Yeah, but, that was a different time, and fighting for gay rights was, a great thing.
Yeah.
At a time when that fight was still going on and needed to be fought on that level.
I remember moving to New York in the early 90s, and I think there was, some gay activists had shut down the Brooklyn Bridge.
This focus on virtue signaling, critics argue, often substitutes for substantive progress. Governor Newsom is seen as a central figure in this dynamic, delivering assured performances. The treatment of political dissent is sometimes perceived as dismissive, framing disagreement as a deficiency. The cumulative effect of these trends is a growing perception of the state as a warning rather than a model. The governor continues to project certainty. However, commentators note that unwavering confidence absent concrete accountability risks appearing disconnected. The ultimate critique is that governance requires deliverables, not just declarations, to maintain public trust.
We've talked about, and this one I think says, if you're a department store with over 500 employees, you have to have a gender-neutral toy department.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, I get it.
So you think that's
it's
silly? You think that's a silly thing we too much government there?
That's an interesting one because the department stores came to us supporting that, and they were the ones making a case for that. They were making a case they're already moving in that direction.
Wanted you to make a law about?
California's current trajectory is viewed less as a success story and more as a complex case study. The commentary resonated because it relied on documented realities, not fabrication. The reaction it provoked is characterized as corrective, urging a focus on outcomes over oratory. For Governor Newsom, the challenge is that key metrics, on the economy, cost of living, and population, provide an ongoing assessment. Analysts note a pattern where policy complexities are presented as evidence of sophistication, rather than gauged by their effectiveness. The critique suggests a system that prioritizes declarations of effort over verifiable accountability is inherently vulnerable to scrutiny. The fundamental question remains when tangible progress will meet ambitious promises.
Friends with Newsom.
Yeah.
We live here, right?
Oh,
we live in
yes.
California. I was born here. In Oakland, they have Kaiser Hospital, where my pediatrician was. The hospital put out a notice last week, employees are not to leave for lunch. It's too dangerous.
Right.
In
That's
downtown
right.
Oakland. That's on him. Our homeless I don't want to hear that the homeless problem is intractable. You want to be CEO? It's your problem. It's your task.
The homelessness crisis has often been approached with established strategies critics say have proven ineffective. Significant funding has been allocated to programs with limited measurable impact. On public safety, policy discussions have sometimes prioritized theoretical frameworks over practical enforcement, according to analysts. Throughout, Governor Newsom has maintained a measured, academic tone. However, residents report adapting their daily lives to changing conditions. The critique suggests the administration has relied heavily on California's historic reputation. The commentary concludes that political charisma is not a substitute for delivering concrete improvements in the lives of citizens.